Boru Aboye. I'm not sure if we're live here yet, but Boru Aboye. Um, Blessings to all the good people. Um, Today, I want to share some brief, but I think significant insights into the importance of love. When I think back on my exposure to other spiritual traditions, I can think of, overall the psychology of, let's say, for example, Christianity is heavily infused with the notion of love, and the importance of love is made evident through the sacred text. The Bible would say that for God so loved the world, right? He gave his only begotten son. Um, there's one verse of the Bible that says that, beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and every one that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. Beloved, let us love one another. And the Song of Solomon, right, is it's an extensive and elaborate expose of love. And so it's clear that the psychology of Christianity has accounted for the importance of love on lots of different levels. There are probably a lot of different examples, but those are just some of the ones that come to mind that I'm familiar with. Likewise, I've read in the Hindu sutras lots of detailed expositions of love, right? And sort of by extension, you could look at something like the Kama Sutra as the art of not necessarily love per se, but of pleasure and intimate interaction. Um, in Persian poetry, lots of lots of magnificent love um, uh, treatments, lots of expositions of love, and I'm sure the Quran is filled with stories of love and profound and meaningful phrases that reveal to you how important love is in that tradition. And but within the Yoruba tradition, I can't think of 10 verses of Ifa that go into detail about love explicitly, or um, I can't think of 10 verses of Ifa that are, you know, making it clear that love is the motivating factor, the driving force for why things are being done. And so we assume that Olodumare loves Orisha, and we assume that Olodumare loves the people. We assume that the Orisha love the people. But you can't find a lot of really salient examples wherein love is the center piece, is the driving force for something being done. Even examples of verses of Ifa that tell us about, a man loving a woman or a woman loving a man, and them having to sacrifice and observe elaborate taboos explicitly for love, right? Yeah, maybe for a spouse, maybe for children, for companionship, but not a lot of examples of people being driven by love. Not a lot of examples of uh, Ifa describing the virtues and the nuances and subtleties of love, being in love and loving and being loved. It just doesn't feature very highly in our tradition. And if you know otherwise, I would love to hear lots of examples, right, of verses of Ifa that talk about love explicitly, you know. But I don't know of very many. I'm really, really hard pressed to find any examples of that. And that's okay, because what I have learned from that example, in that quest, because I've thought about this many times. This is not the first day I've thought about this. It has caused me to observe and pay close attention to what the verses do say, and what I see within Yoruba culture. And what I see is that the Yoruba in general are not touchy-feely, sentimental people. It's not an environment wherein sentimentalism and romanticism is features really high. You know, there's a greater emphasis on observing the nature and the character of the object of your affection, right? You learn to recognize your lover's attributes and to flatter and to accentuate with words and descriptions the attributes that you find appealing. If it's their skin color or the shape of their body or the way they do certain things, you speak to that. And there are more examples of people and deities being, complementing one another than being in love with one another. And the motivation for those compliments and the explanation for why certain things go together and complement one another, and the explanation for what it means that certain things are appealing and beautiful, is that these are reflections of wisdom. So Ifa and Orisha lifestyle really gives a lot more emphasis to wisdom. Orumila himself is not a deity of love. We don't cherish Oromila's contribution because he loves us. We cherish Oromila's contribution because he is wise. Oromila is praised as the one who teaches one wisdom like a kinsman, right? The one who is small but whose head is filled with wisdom. And in fact, there's a verse of the Erindin the 16 cowries, which says that first, let us accumulate great wisdom, because great wisdom will enable us to create strong medicine. And with strong medicine, we can heal a great ailment. And by healing a great ailment, we can accumulate great wealth. But first, let us accumulate great wisdom. And so that is a, a very powerful and significant insight for us here in the West. Right? People who have been raised on romanticism and notions of love and things like that, it's great to juxtapose that against this high value for wisdom, because I think it promotes maturity. Okay, there's nothing wrong with love. There's nothing wrong with romanticism per se, but it has to be balanced out. And I think wisdom is a wonderful balance to romanticism and love. So one of the things that I have greatly appreciated about being a practitioner of Orisha lifestyle and an Ifa priest is that Ifa is constantly admonishing us to be wise. And wisdom to me is synonymous with maturity, right? Wisdom requires patient observation. Wisdom requires a very deliberate and purposeful application of knowledge. It's not just that you know certain things, but you know how to apply things. You know how to implement things in a way that is harmonious, that's constructive, and sustainable. And so, as we seek to flourish and to grow within the practice of Orisha lifestyle, I think it's in our best interest to respect and accept and master those disciplines and practices that are endemic, that really help us to be in alignment with the values of the tradition. In other words, it is in our best interest to seek wisdom first, right? No matter how much love we have in our hearts, maturity is associated with being wise. Maturity is associated with being thoughtful and forward thinking, right? And so I think the role of love, we can express love. Olodumare expresses love for creation through wisdom, through creating a system that is balanced, that is harmonious, that is eternal. Mother Earth expresses her love for us by nurturing and sustaining all of our needs. She provides fresh air and water and fertile soil and a variety of different kinds of foods and things for us to sustain our lives. That's wise, but it's also implicitly an act of love. And so our ability to carry out those kinds of attributes by being useful, by being high functioning, by being able to make a contribution not to our own lives and also to the lives of the people who we're destined to serve is an act of love. When you optimize your natural gifts and talents and you show up fully, consistently, day after day after day after day, that's an act of love. That's an act of wisdom, right? Because you know that you were created out of this act of wisdom. When I even think of one of the, well, what I consider one of the most significant verses of Ifa that tells us that who we are as people, as Enya, we have been chosen by Olodumare to help bring about the good condition. And how we bring about the good condition is through cultivating wisdom, through being altruistic, through being of service, through minimizing pain and suffering by being generous and providing for those who can't provide for themselves, eliminating threats in every way, shape, or form, right? That is an act of love, but it's driven and motivated by wisdom. And so, in all of our pursuits for spiritual development and growth, let us seek to embody and to express the spirit of wisdom through our love. Aboraboye, aboshishe.